Hello everybody, it's AJ here. Welcome to the TMG channel, the Certified Organic Monster Ecology video channel. And we're going to return to the mighty Abyss, and I'm going to talk about the difference between demons and Obyrith, and what constitutes a demon lord and a demigod and a god and things like that, and cover the history of the very first creatures to exist in the D&D world. So if we go way back to the foundation of the universe of D&D, there was a pre-existing universe, another universe. It was a ruined universe at the very end of its existence, where there was nothing left but entropy, red giants floating in vast voids, huge black holes and decay, and rips and tears all through space-time that were created by beings that were warping and twisting the laws of physics to suit their whim. And some of those creatures managed to survive the end of the universe and transition themselves to a wholly new, different universe. And that was the Obyrith. So the Obyrith, spelled O-B-Y-R-I-T-H, are a collection of very weird beings, and I particularly like them because they're just so out there. They are modelled in many ways. They sort of hint at a strong relation to the great old ones created in the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft. So these are creatures that rarely, if ever, have a humanoid shape. Some of them, just looking at an Obyrith, can drive a mortal insane. They have fantastically ancient forms and existence, and many of them have changed quite a lot over time, so that they've actually evolved to better fit into the universe that they now exist in. Others have not. So the Obyrith lords have evolved over time to take on more recognizable shapes, such as Pazuzu on the first layer of the Abyss, or Pale Knight, and I'm going to be talking about Pale Knight in my next video on the Abyss, because I'm going to be talking about Bebelith and Pale Knight and where she comes from, where she exists, because she's particularly cool, and it's a nice little starter to describe an abyssal layer and one of these Obyrith and what they do. Other known Obyrith demon lords include Obox-ob, Dagon, the Queen of Chaos, Melgoth, Ugading, Bechard, Vroth-kun, Ubethar, and Carbon, who's currently imprisoned in the Well of Darkness. Asima and the numerous other Obyrith lords whose names were lost to time because they've been destroyed, either slain by each other or slaughtered by the tanar'ri, the demons that they themselves created. Several others were slain by the Queen of Chaos for refusing to join her army when she attempted genocide against the Windukes of Aqua. This was the conflict of law and chaos that I was talking about earlier on, and is the baseline story of the origin of the Rod of Seven Parts. So the various forms of the non sort of demon lord Obyrith are the Echolid, which they resemble a union of an ant, a scorpion, and a spider, and they're obsessed with reproduction. The Lagathi, which resemble oily black octopi. They usually hang out close to the borders of the blood river or the river Styx, and they steal memories from people. The Olozru, which resemble massive aquatic centipedes with a single eye, with a sort of inside a big moory mouth, and they have lots of feeding tentacles, and they primarily serve the demon prince Dagon in his realm of the Shadow Sea. There's others, and you'll hear fireworks and stuff going off outside because it's getting close to Guy Fawkes Night here in New Zealand, so I apologise for the sound of explosions and whistles in the background. There's the Golothama, and I actually did a figurine of these. The Golothama was quite a lot of fun to sculpt. So they're mouthless single-eyed, serpentine. They have sort of insect-like legs, a serpentine body, and they feed on others by consuming them within their shadow. So they have no mouth, but wherever its shadow falls can actually consume you. They are also able to reach between dimensions and attack others, their foes, using their spider-like claws. And there's also the Sibrex, which resemble enormous deformed faces floating in the air and linked to the ground by metal chains. They are thought to be those who started forming the tanar'ri in the first place, because they love moulding and forming flesh and creating twisted forms of life. There's also the Varakia, which are huge dragon-like Obyriths that lives in the demon gorgons realm. They're mindless beasts, and anyone who lays eyes on one of them is sort of infected with a psychotic madness, which turns them into a mindless killer. So there's various Obyrith lords. Dagon, as I mentioned, the Lord of the Darkened Depths, is pretty much the responsible for the deep ones and stuff, and that's very much a Lovecraftian theme, which is translated directly over into Dungeons and Dragons. Obox-ob is the Prince of Vermin. Pale Night is the Mother of Demons, and I'll be talking about her later. Pazuzu is the Prince of the Lower Aerial Kingdoms, and he doesn't appear to be he's the most normal looking, you could say, of the Obyrith, but that's a ruse by him. Once every great cycle of the wheel, you could say every 10,000 or 100,000 years or so, all of the Obyrith meet on the first layer of the abyss in a special location where a portal to their world still exists, to their ancient universe, resided over by Pazuzu. The Queen of Chaos led the side of Chaos in the battle against the Winduzu Arca, and she's currently in seclusion in a sort of a dank fen dimension. Kaburi is known as the Watching Master. Sertrois is the Prince of Heretics. Azimir is the Unanticipated, and nobody's laid eyes on that thing for a very long time. Pickett is the Lord of Tempests, and also known as the Rotting Husk. There's other ones such as Kazavidexis, the Belgoth, Oberthar, Urgedink, Vishovoriak, and Rothkun. So there's lots of different ones, and there's lots of lore on each one of them. So one of the things that really defines what the Obyrith is utterly alien. So much like the creatures from the Far Realm, which have aberrant physical and mental traits, the Obyrith are defined by their ability to cross between dimensions, just like we walk left or right. To them, crossing between boundaries and barriers and things, and existing in different states of being, so being a physical and ethereal creature at the same time, or having a form in the elemental chaos and the prime material plane at the same time. So they are transdimensional by nature, and in random ways. So each one of them manifests this in different aspects. So even by our standards of something which exists, which is alien, they're even more alien. So they don't even fit the geography of our space-time, our universe, or the D&D universe. And since they predate everything that exists in this universe, a lot of, you could say that the very first creatures which existed, which didn't really have boundaries on their on the definitions of what they could be, so they had limitless potential, they became gods by observing this transdimensional nature and learning how to master it. And I would say, thanks neighbours. Oh, that's a pretty display. I would say that the thing that defines what the difference between a god and a very, very powerful creature is that transdimensional nature. So that when you encounter an aspect of a god. You can never encounter the entire thing, because a god exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. So that would be like trying to destroy a piece of string by cutting off the end of it, and then seeing to your dismay that there's still another end of string there, and you keep cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, but until you've destroyed the entire length of the string, it's still there. You just can't destroy it. It's effectively immortal. Same thing applies with gods. The transition of a very, very powerful creature into a god involves a massive accumulation of power, which allows them to extend their existence into a transdimensional state or transtemporal state, so that they exist in the past and the future, in alternate timelines, different realms of potential or possibility, different realms of existence, so different planes of existence simultaneously. Not only that, but they are aware in all and manipulating things in each one of these places simultaneously, or even at different points of time. So their consciousness is spread across space-time in a way which normal mortals can't even comprehend. So they instantly become mysterious and very, very powerful, and involved in plots and machinations which manipulate reality itself, to the point where they set in motion whole chains of events. So that's really why I'm extremely hesitant to put gods with stats anywhere, because it seems to be a creature that can be killed to your average player when they look at it and think, oh, if it's got stats, I can kill it. Well, that's not necessarily the case with gods. They're on a different level playing field, where only they can deal with the full extent of their opponent. A mortal never can, because they can only be in one place at one time. So that's the Obyrith. They do exist in different points of time, so they are a threat to gods, and they are a threat to demon lords and things. They're extremely potent, and they're also extremely problematic for something like a player character to deal with, because many of them can't be killed, not by conventional means, and not even means that the average player character could imagine in the first place. Like a player could probably figure it out by picking apart the lore and getting very metagamey about it, but there's no way that a player character would know from their perspective that this thing is a transdimensional being, and just killing its physical form will never destroy it. No matter what you do, it's still going to have most of its body dispersed across a couple of different, like it may exist in limbo mainly, with an extension into the elemental chaos and a representation of its physical form in the prime material plane, which doesn't appear to make any physical sense, because it's really just a projection which is inserted into that realm, much like we would put a fingertip through the surface of the ocean, and something inside the ocean, perhaps not able to see us on the other side, would think that we were the fingertip. Such is the nature of the Obyrith. They created the tanar'ri as a slave race, so the demon forms that existed from the very first edition. Originally in the original first edition of Dungeons and Dragons, they were just known as types, and a number, type 1 through to type 5, and they also had succubus was the only named demon form. In first edition they got their names, so this is through Greyhawk, and that was the Vrox, Hezrel, Glabrezu, Nalfeshni, Mariliths, and the Balors, respectively. Second edition and the Monster Manual further defined them, and that was when they first got known as the tanar'ri. Of course, this is back when TSR was embroiled with all sorts of problems with media and special interest groups. And a helicopter. Man, I'm just batting 1,000 today. And of course that's when they needed to stop using the word demon, so that's when they started adopting the word tanar'ri and batizu to describe these different things. In third edition, the term devil and demon were restored, and the release of the third edition rule sets saw the term tanar'ri retained, but it is applied specifically to a predominant subset of demons. And in 3rd edition, there were 3 known subtypes of demons. So that was when you had the Obyrith and the tanar'ri and the Lomara. The Lomara are a relatively new demon race, much younger than the tanar'ri, but they're still centuries old, and recent in a place like the Abyss, where time doesn't mean the same thing as it does on the material plane. As a result, no Lomara has become powerful enough to be recognized as a demon lord yet. And they include the debuk, which resembles a jellyfish with a simply sketched human face on it. So they're incorporeal creatures that don't have a specific human form, but they can possess and control dead bodies. So they spend a lot of their time in the society of a victim, plugged into a plunging into depravity and hedonism until their possessed body is broken down and ruined, when they have to transfer into a new perfect body to once again take on a physical form that's not an amorphous jellyfish. So debuk will take a less desirable body and continue to search for a better host, where they'll typically look for somebody in high society who's they've either murdered or is recently deceased. So they're lonely creatures because they desire to be a living thing with a form and such, but it's always fleeting as their body decays around them. And they only really group together when there's many corpses to possess, such as on a battlefield or such, when they've come in en masse, but they tend to disperse, and they also tend to avoid the undead because the already animated bodies are of no use to them. The guaychubu resemble a mass of vapor, and they're born from dream stuff tainted by evil. So they can possess and control the body of a sleeping humanoid, and once they're in control, they basically ride it silently, letting their victim go about his or her daily business. And at some point they take over and lash out and try to spread death and murder, particularly amongst the victim's family and friends, so that the person that they're infesting becomes tainted with the brush of a psychopath, a murderer. And they'll conceal their actions even from the victim, so they wake up, covered in blood, and they have no idea what happened, and let them believe that they're cursed or jinxed somehow, and that the killings form some sort of a pattern. And eventually, when enough blood has been spilled, they reveal the meaning, they're horrific beings. They're very nasty. They rarely form groups with any other of their kind, preferring to remain hidden and anonymous. However, some of them can be found in the Dreaming Gulf, which is the 230th layer of the Discovered Abyss, where they are created spontaneously from the raw churning stuff of dreams. So they are effectively dream demons, and they're relatively new. Of course, because of the nature of the chaotic nature of the Abyss, new demons are being created all the time, either by Pale Night, known as the Mother of Demons, or through the actions of through the actions of the Sibrieks, which are the shapers that create new demons all the time, and occasionally the actions of these things will create demons, or even through the random creation of demons within the Abyss, something really, really nasty occurs, and a demon that can't be controlled, that is actually destroying reality itself, or is completely disruptive to everything that everybody is doing, is created. And that's when Pale Night sends out the Bebelith to deal with it, or when the inevitables become involved, or some such. But we'll talk about that in the next video. That's just a basic overview of the definitions of some of the denizens of the Abyss. So what the difference between an Obyrith and a demon per se, or tanar'ri, is, and what the difference between a god and a very powerful supernatural creature or immortal is. And yeah, if that was of use to you, let me know down below. If you want me to expand further on any of those by preference, just let me know which one you'd like to hear more about next. Otherwise, my next video will be about the Obyrith, or possibly one of the other monsters off my wish list, which I've been rather slack in getting around to lately. And also I'd like to start covering some of the goblinoids in detail as well. If you could vote down below which goblinoid you'd like to hear about first, please let me know. So yeah, thanks for listening everybody, and I'll catch you again soon.